Hey Jess, how's it going? I'm all good. Yeah, I guess last year was like really trending for this year. I mean, just when you thought, couldn't get any. Oh wow, I don't know. It's really an incredible time for me because I feel like maybe I've just developed the skill set to literally deal with anything. So, um, are you feeling safe? Um, yeah, yeah, but there's a couple things that I really feel like I'm starting to understand. Like, so do you remember how I told you I sent an email, to a couple moms, and then some of those moms didn't respond in the way that I wanted them to respond, right? So it kind of made me feel like, okay, that now I get to make a choice about if I want those people to be in my life in the future. And for most of them, it was like no, right? But then I don't know if I told you this, but some of them are like friends with some of my neighbors, right? And it was just kind of like, okay, so the kind of, I feel like the cutoff then extends to, at least for me, I don't know, to my neighbors too, where it's like, I'm not choosing those people either. And then it's just kind of weird because I feel like, I don't know, there's some expectation that like I'm supposed to be a role model or like I'm not sure, right, with all of the things that are happening in the world, as being like a black person who like lives on the block, who's like visible to these people, like I suppose like I'm supposed to have I'm not really sure what the expectation is, but like I have nothing to offer them. Like I don't have any sort of like extra compassion now. Like I don't feel closer. Like I don't feel the drive to try to be like a visible black person for their children. I don't know. Like it's weird. Yeah. Like neighbors. I really don't know. I don't have any like thing extra to give. Is my point now, and I feel like one thing that is just very strange is to it's like twofold, right? Like there's one quote that I've been, man, I've had quite a few conversations about this. Oh no, do this one day. I've had a few conversations about this quote, but I think that it is just very representative of my reality. It says, I'm trying to pull it up, but it basically says, oh shit, where'd it go? It was so good. It's so good. Oh, here it is. So part of my Twitter feed is consumed with civil unrest and racial injustice. The other is entranced with GPT-3. I don't know what GPT-3 is. Oh, okay. So GPT-3 is like this algorithm. Well, it's like a data. It's an algorithm in like a data set that OpenAI, which is this like artificial intelligence like research firm, they put out the paper for GPT-3 because they'd been advertising it for a while, and it has all these like really new cool features. And so they put out the paper, and that means that you can like play with the code base. So it's like a research paper, like a new improvement in AI, right? So half the people are just like, GPT-3, this is so cool. The other half is like, the world is burning around me. you know? It's just like, this is the same thing that I see. And that's when I realized all my people, like my really small niche, group of black nerds, are all going through the same thing. Where it's like, you're literally in tech, like you're like you're following AI and ML too, but then you just really realize, okay, like most of the other black people in the world are not in tech, and a lot of them are out protesting and are like rioting, and yeah, and it's crazy too because if you actually think about the state of the world, most people in the world are not in tech, and a lot of countries have actually started rioting. So it's like I'm seeing videos of New Zealand, everybody's like trotting all over the world, right? And so to have this like group of people, though, in Silicon Valley who are still not affected by civil unrest. They're literally just like, it was SpaceX this weekend and it was GPT-3 launch. Some people were like saying sorry to their Uber coworkers who were fired over the last week because Uber AI closed its lab. But totally normal day, right? And it's just like, I feel like I'm really starting to like live in this place where I understand what my problems are, like the things that affect me, right? And like really people like me, because like systemic racism, it does impact me. And that it's really okay for me to like sit here and be like, stop, because there were like, there was that one, the one tweet I read is from another black tech worker, and I was like, I'm just gonna be here and I'm gonna be like, yo dude, I see you and I feel what you're saying and I hear you and you're not tripping. And so what I did is I just started like replying to people who were like talking about what was going on, because I'm like, you're not invisible and you're not living in the twilight zone. This shit is really happening, and it's them. It's those people who are fucked up because they are pretending like something is not wrong. It's the gaslighting, right? And it's the gaslighting that I feel like I've been seeing for a very long time. It's just now other people are feeling it. Like when it's so surprising, it's not surprising to me at all. People are like, so many Facebook workers are like talking about how they're like walking out now. Like the company is all of a sudden overnight not being trashed. Like they've been trashed for a really long time, and now you see like when something major happens and you see how they respond. It's like this is how they always respond. This is like so typical. It's like they do this all the time, which is why like a lot of people leave. This is why I left. Like people really, it like fucks with you mentally when you're like, do you not see like you are contributing to like helping the world burn and you just truly don't give a shit. And it's, I don't know, it's like it's really strange to like to sit next to people who believe like they're so smart, and then they all talk about the world getting better and they want to go to space, right? And I was talking to, so one of my closest friends, she worked at like Google X, right? And so she worked with Astro Teller, who's like an astrophysicist, right? And he was talking about why he's not investing in going to space. And he's like one of the main, if you're talking about anybody who's going to be like the smartest person who want to invest in space, it'd be this guy. And he was saying like, I live in the real world, like I see the real problems that we're facing as society. We can't go to space right now because we haven't fixed the problems we have here. Just like, yeah, yeah.
Pretty deep stuff.
It's really deep stuff. I One thing that I found, I mean, man, I'm just saying, like 2019, I thought it was really shitty, but I really I really noticed, like, I have really, truly grown as a person,
Wow.
because, like, I'm actually able to be there for, like, other friends who are just like, they're just like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I don't know.
Right,
It's
because
just, I'm
you've
like,
been through a major crisis before, and so
right,
your strategies and coping mechanisms have changed,
yeah.
matured.
I mean, yeah, it's incredible. But I mean, come on, like this is fucking insane. And maybe the world is like really trying to prepare me for like this shitty ass. Because this year is still not as shitty as last year for me. This is like nothing. Like last year was still the worst. It was still like it will never, for me in history, like nothing will go down as being worse than 2019. That was the year from hell. Like this is not. This isn't worse to me. But it's bad. It's like it's not good. And I think that's another thing that I'm also starting to notice. Like we are, and I'm saying we because I'm talking about like the people who are just like me, the people who see this and who are also like black in tech and kind of realize, oh my god, there's a big ass problem. And those people are not going to solve it for us. Like those AI leaders now, all the researchers who aren't saying shit, those are the people who are, they are literally creating technology that it's being like Facebook, right? Being used for mass surveillance, for misinformation by the president. Nobody gives a shit. It's like, okay, well, keep going. But at the same time, we really do have skills. And I mean, these skills can be used to actually build a better society, and like we don't have to like include them if they're not gonna like if they don't give a shit, right? Like if they're literally sitting here right now in the face of like injustice and not doing anything. They're not tweeting anything. They're not saying anything. There's like I'm not sure what they're what they're how they're engaging in civic society. But the funny part is like these are people who are parents, right? These are people who are trying to raise kids. Like what type of world are you raising your kid in? Like that's the thing I couldn't fathom, right? Like I had to send the email to those moms, and I couldn't pretend like nothing was going wrong. I crashed the car, 'cause shit was going wrong. Like things were not okay for me. Like things were not good. I was not sitting there like pretending like they were good when they weren't good. Like they were bad. They were real bad, right? And it's like I understand what the protesters are doing. I understand what the rioters are doing. The rioters were me last year. Like it's like literally when you run out of the logic is gone, right? The reasoning is gone. You're not in a place where you can rationalize anymore. There's like a girl who's talking about how she's lost three brothers to police brutality, like they're dead. Three dead brothers to police brutality. Like there's no more like voting for her. Like I get it. Like she's way past like having a fucking conversation. Like I get it. Like
Yeah.
and I guess there's a whole other part like
it's not rational. So how can you
exactly
how can you beat it with? It's what you were saying, what you've been saying so much of like why you kind of went into the mental hospitals. Like I can't have a rational conversation here, so the only rational thing for me to do is to be irrational.
Exactly. Yes. And I feel like so many people this is layered, right? This is so layered. I think I saw is it Jon Stewart? I think or talk not Jon Stewart. Oh my god. Stephen Colbert, in his most recent piece, he just did a really great job of like talking about like how this is layered, and it's been layered for so long, and he gave like 17 different examples that really like lead you to where we are now. But I do feel like for many Americans, they haven't been following along with this story. Like they've been on the other side of the narrative. Like they don't think that like white supremacy is a thing. Like they don't really feel that like black people are at any disadvantage now because they have one or two examples of black people being successful, and they're saying everybody could pull themselves up by their bootstraps. People just aren't doing it, like you could really do it. And it's like no, like the people who are successful are anomalies, and they have overcome this like level of oh my gosh, like like
Or like what you've said earlier, like have had to hurt themselves or even prostitute themselves like in the entertainment system.
oh definitely, yeah. And I think it's weird because if one person does that, that cannot be the expectation for everybody, right? Which is why it's unrealistic. This is why the system doesn't work, right? Like if I know that I have to sell 100 pigs or something to get a song on the radio, I can't just assume that everybody's gonna have 100 pigs to sell. Like they literally don't, right? Like you just might not have any pigs. Then what do? You just can't get your song. And that's what I mean. So the whole system in America is supposed to be like built on structures that create opportunity for everyone, which is why, and I feel like a lot of people don't understand that the public resources that are available to them are not available to everyone. Like people might, especially like black students, might go to a segregated neighborhood public school, but it's not providing those students with an education that prepares them to really engage in civic society or be competitive in capitalism. So, what is the purpose then of that education? Because they can't actually change the system politically to benefit themselves, and they can't contribute to capitalism. Like, that's the part that really fucked with me. Like, I know to get to Facebook, I actually had to be better than a lot of other people. Like, I had to compete in capitalism. It wasn't just like I showed up with this like bare minimum credential and they were like, okay, yeah, you met the minimum standard bar and now you get in. It was like, no, like I had to be better than other people who've been training their whole lives to like be competitive in capitalism, and then after beating all of those people out, then I got the opportunity. And it's like, there's no reasonable, I would not be a reasonable person if I expected like all my cousins to also be able to do that. That's an unreasonable expectation. Like, I know how many fucking like hoops I had to jump through to like get there. And I was doing shit, like I was also doing that shit while like raising a child and like supporting a home, and like it was, I can't expect other people to be able to do that. And then the other thing is like all of like my neighbors and the coworkers and the colleagues, like they miss all that context. Like they don't even know that. I've never told them that story. They don't even understand that that's how I got there. And so they really have this like context, this like inner dialogue of like they could all do it. Everyone can do it. It's like I've literally been watching you guys complain about COVID and fucking homeschooling. You're like damn near dying, and it's only been like a month. Imagine doing this for 5 years, and like paying a mortgage, or and it's just like all of the layers, right? And dealing with the shit on top of like systemic racism. It's like people don't get it. Like this is it's like impossible.
It's really hard. Yeah, yeah. And and I don't know if the sort of, when you talk about your neighbors and the people who see you do it and think that they can do it too, are these like white neighbors and friends, or are they black neighbors and friends?
So I don't think there's like a couple tech people on the block, but I don't think any of them have worked at the companies that I work at. So they've worked at like lower tier companies. So it's not the same type of like environment that there's really something to being like mediocre and white. Like people just they really get shit, and they're not that great. And like I just know like how great I've had to be, and even really being around like other people who are like really great. It's like, even when I think about like I was at the New York Times dealing with like the chief data scientist was like my main person that I like go to lunch with and go to like dinners with and stuff. And it's like this guy is like really, 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 really smart, right? He has like a PhD in AI from Columbia. He like he really is like really bright, right? Or the whole floor is full of like statistics professors at Columbia. It's like, okay, well, if these are the neighbors, these are the people I'm talking about. Okay, but it's not like I'm talking about my neighbors who are like school teachers, people who like worked at Lucky's for their whole life. It's like, I'm sorry, but like y'all are pretty basic. Like it's not, you're not phenomenal in any way. And I think like the fact that um even you like are not trying to like, you're not, I don't see you like engaging, being like, I'm a member of this community now. And like especially like in Oakland, right? Like this has a history of like um racial tension and just like like advocacy, right? So it's these people are not trying to engage in that. They're just like, what do we do? I'm white and I kind of feel bad, but I'm raising my children now, and this is where I want to live now, and I'm here, and I don't know, I guess that's as far as the conversation. It's not even a conversation, it's just like doing their like gentrifying activities. I don't know. I don't even think people stop going to school. Like their kids are like still going to preschool. It's like I don't know. It's quite a lot. I just, that's another thing that's like really tricky, right? Because like I have a friend now, and he's texting me like I don't even know how his PM, I guess, is talking to him about a project that's due. It's like, oh, you're gonna turn the project in, and it's just kind of like the world is on fire, bro. Like, really? And it's like, no, really, like capitalism it just keeps going. Like
It just keeps going.
it
Yeah.
just keeps going. And so there's other things that are interesting with some of the conversations I had over the weekend, like um, rent, right? Like rent is going to be due for a lot of people, and they're not going to be able to pay their rent. And like where I know that most of the people who are going to be dealing with evictions are going to be black and brown, and that's really fucked up. Like where are these people going to go? Like how? Why is there an expectation that people are not going to protest and are not going to riot?
Whose expectation is that?
I feel like societies. It's the people who are on Twitter who are just kind of like I don't get. They're criticizing the rioters, right? They're insinuating that there's something wrong with it. But I really resonated with like Trevor Noah's speech this week when he was saying like the social contract. Like America is not living up to the social contract for Black people in this country, and it like never has. So
Never has.
yeah, so why
So
would there be an
close.
expectation that people would like abide by the social contract? Like the only reason that most people don't like loot is because of the social contract. Because like socially we've all said like, yeah, looting's not good. Just go get a job and then work for the things that you want. But like if you actually can't get a job or if you're fired from your job or if you don't have any money, but it's like you've like never had any money, like what? This social contract doesn't apply. Like all the shit doesn't apply. It's not. Yeah, it's like really trying to bring rationality to an irrational conversation. So
I mean, it seems like the part of the looting is, I mean, at least for the big box stores that are being looted, I mean, part of it seems like it's a message, not necessarily just trying to get material items from it,
yeah,
right? Because big box stores are ran by white imperialist, capitalist, materialism that's destroying the world and our society at large,
yeah,
right? So there's messaging there too.
yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing about rioting is like it's it's a message, right?
Exactly, yeah,
That something's not that something doesn't feel good, something's not going right, right? It's the preliminary part of a revolution.
yeah. And I
That
just
doesn't mean that there's not problems with it, but but it's important that people have the right to gather, and unfortunately, we haven't negotiated a way to do that peacefully or non-violently because we've been using violent tactics
right.
to keep society, under control.
I kind of wonder like when I'm thinking about how to move forward, I can't like I actually can't unsee what I saw, right? Like I can't unsee the silence. Like I can't like as much as I admired like Peter Abil before this weekend, he said nothing about this, like nothing at all. At all. He's been silent and I can't look at him the same way. I just can't. Cuz it's almost like, oh well, if I died tomorrow, he'd still be talking about like reinforcement learning. He'd be like, it's all good. It's kind of like, well, if he died tomorrow, I feel like I would be sad. You know what I mean? Like if something was happening to the Jewish community, I'd be like, this isn't good. Like, oh my gosh. But it's like that there isn't that reciprocity, and therefore it makes I do see myself as a human. So if I see another human who doesn't respect me in that way, like my respect to them is lost, which is what the way that I feel about my neighbors. Like, well, I kind of feel like when I needed support, it wasn't there, and then I don't know. I can't still see. I feel like that maybe just about so many people. It's not even that they're canceled, because like I even feel like the idea of canceled is like you're pretending like someone doesn't exist, and it's not even that. Like I know that these people exist, but it's like it's also that I know they're a problem, and I feel like maybe that's like it's a weird new strategy because also like I think I told you I went on the so I did go and I hung out with my cousin, and that was interesting. It was nice. um I just totally forgot actually how much stuff we have in common. We have a lot in common. Like, but she was in London, so that's another thing too, where I feel like I I couldn't have any expectations for her because as I went through all that, she was literally in London.